Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Badgerland Birding Podcast. Today, I am joined by Mathew Radford, our friend. Where do you even live, Matthew? I totally forgot.
Tulsa, Eastern Oklahoma.
Eastern Oklahoma, but he is a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so we
Yes,
agreed to wear Buccaneers gear today.
right on.
Is
Our
that
our
Mike Evans?
throwback. That is Mike Evans. Yeah,
The
we still
Mike
got him,
Evans
thankfully.
pewter jersey?
Yeah,
I like how you mixed the retro logo with the new jersey this time.
absolutely. And you have a nice one too. I appreciate the homage to the Buccaneers.
The straight up creamsicle. I like the Buccaneers now. I mean, I always like their logo and everything, but I like Baker Mayfield. And Buka that you guys have now is looks really good.
Oh, very good. Yeah, he's going to be a highlight.
Yeah, but I think before we get into talking about birds, we have to talk about who won our fantasy football matchup this week.
That was you. Oh, the interesting thing is both of our quarterbacks kind of stunk, but mine
Oh yeah,
really stunk. And but you beat me. Yeah, you may win a prize eventually.
I requested actually a Sasquatch. What is that even a little banner? A banner with the Sasquatch carrying a flag of the Packers?
Yeah, and it turns out they have one available for every NFL team. So I think I will offer that as a league, as part of the league winning package, a Sasquatch favorite team, uh, well, yeah, flag for the front yard essentially.
I think it should always be the package. Should just be that. You get one of these Sasquatch flags, and that's what you get, and that's it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Perfect. So, how's
Yeah.
the birding been going in Oklahoma? For us, fall has started, so we've started to see some migration already. What's been going on out by you?
Yeah, we're finally got into the cooler weather. I do honestly take a little time off midsummer when it's hot, but shorebirds came through in August, of course. So we had some good shorebird migration, a lot of buff-breasted sandpipers, pectoral sandpipers, the classics coming through. Caught some of those. Here we have sod farms that are only good if we get some rain, get lucky. So we got one good rainstorm and had a couple real good days of shorebirds in August. We did seek out and found a beautiful little group of eastern screech owls the other night.
Oh, nice. A
Stayed
group
out
of them?
late. Yeah, there was like four or five right by the parking area. Two of them together. I don't know if it was a family group that's hanging out together, but they were very vocal, and there was some ambient light because it was near the lake there, and we got good looks at them and had fun encounters. The We had been hoping to get some late Capra mulgoods, but they had moved out. Whippoorwills and Chuckwill's widows evidently are gone. So I'm gonna get out this week and try to get a migrating Canada warbler, which I need in the county still, and a ovenbird, which I need for the year still. So it is happening, but I haven't really got out and hit it hard. I will now that it's a little cooler.
Yeah, I always stop in summer altogether. I don't plan on stopping, but then the bugs get bad and stuff is breeding and I always call it random rarity season because you'll get
Yeah,
stuff that shows up that's super rare but really infrequently and nothing should really be moving around. So it's always funny that stuff shows up at all. But by us, nothing is really moving through right now, it feels. So
yeah.
we had some shorebirds. We had a redneck phalarope, which was cool. American golden plover. I think the buff-breasted sandpipers pretty much probably already moved through. They hung around a little longer last year. But other than that, it's been a few warblers, a few flycatchers, but nothing serious has been moving through lately.
Okay. Yeah, and speaking of rarities, I would like to get here soon. Every year someone gets a Sabine's goal or however you choose to pronounce it. I've never seen one in the county, and it's been 20 years since I've seen one. So I'm hoping to get out on the sod farms in the Arkansas River soon and get a Sabine's goal maybe, because I think they're around, but I haven't been able to find one here yet.
We say Sabins, but I have no idea what's correct, so I can't possibly chastise you for calling it anything else.
Yeah, and I started saying it when I was birding all by myself 30 years ago in Idaho. So no one corrected me then, and just now it's ingrained.
Now you're spreading it to other people, actually, I think.
Exactly.
That's um that's the same with lazuli lazuli bunting. That's one of our biggest pronunciation mysteries in my opinion.
Yeah, and I always say, and I tend to enunciate. I get made fun of my W's and stuff. I'm an enunciator, and so I say lazuli, but.
I used to call it lazuli, and then a number of people out in California were like, no, it's lazuli. And I honestly don't know, so I just say whatever somebody else says. So I'm conversing with someone, I'll be like, what's that bunting that is blue out west? And then they'll say it, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that one. Then just say it like that the rest of the time.
Yeah, and I've ran into people in the upper Midwest, especially my buddy in Iowa, that they seem to say everything different there than I do. Or I say impedinax, they say impedidonax. They say carula, I say perula. I'm probably saying it
I
wrong, but
think
I really,
perula we can all agree is correct. I've heard
yeah,
people try to say perila, and it doesn't sound right to me.
yeah, we're probably correct.
I'm hoping so. But I wanted to actually talk kind of about the interesting waves of migration that come through today, because obviously fall migration is going to start probably heating up in the next couple of months. We're going to see some big flocks and hopefully kettles of raptors moving through. What's it like in Oklahoma in terms of the waves that come through? Do you kind of think about it in terms of the season of this bird and then that bird? Because whenever I see the nighthawks coming through, it's kind of a specific memory. Then when the buff-breasted sandpiper show up, it's a specific memory. I wanted to hear kind of your take on that and what it's like in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and we were, not a lot of people do county listing per se, but last year we're super busy. All of us, my son and my partner, were all working full time and couldn't really travel much. So we did more of a county big year, but we really picked through the county, really paid attention to eBird data. And that's exactly what we kind of picked up on, just paying attention to those different waves of migrants. In terms of different groups, like the shorebirds, if we get a good rain, we can pick up all the main shorebirds. And we did start figuring out that, buff-breasted would get first, a a western sandpiper, if we do get one, it'll be later. Definitely the white rump sandpipers later. So we started to pay attention to those waves that come through and spacing ourselves to understand you got to be out different weeks to get these different birds. And then randomly a whimbrel might show up or a willet, whatever. And we're in an interesting place that and there's a lot of migrants that we get here, but we're just on the edge. So like the
Mm.
eastern warblers, we can get some really good warblers. We got like 25 in the county this year, but you really have to pick through and get them. Like I got one Blackburnian, two chestnut-sided, one golden winged, one bay-breasted. So we get like little drips of warblers, and it's tough to get them all. But if we really pick through the habitat, it's not like in Georgia or Alabama or Tennessee even, where you can get 10 or 12 of one species a day, or 10 or 12 individuals of one species a
Hmm.
day. So that does, again, that keys us in on how important it is to time it right. We know that we can still get a Blackburnian or chestnut-sided third week of May, and then maybe a morning in Canada coming through even a little later. You can pick one up really the first part of June. So migrants are sparse here in terms of warblers and shorebirds, but if we figure out that timing and do pretty well.
Well, you aren't particularly in a flyway, really, are you?
Not really. We're not. We're too far west of the Mississippi. We're certainly not on Atlantic or Pacific flyway. So yeah, we kind of get what's left over. We do get a few fortunate fun ones though, because we're here. A Smith's longspur, Harris's sparrow that are wintering here. They're not really migrating here, but they're
Hmm.
they're wintering here. The buff-breasted sandpiper is interesting that we do get the bulk of them through really the internal part of the U.S. Much sparser to either side of us, but we get the bulk of them, which is fun. So we can go out and get. I've got 150 buff-breasted sandpipers in a big flock.
Wow.
I know much further west or east, a person has to really pick through shorebirds to get those. So there's some that are great here, some not so great.
Yeah, they're one of the most interesting shorebirds in my opinion. Their migratory path is confusing to me because we don't get them where we are on the way up typically. Very, very rare that in the spring someone's reporting a buff-breasted sandpiper, but then in fall they come through that 1 week or weekend. So I find that to be interesting that they must take a slightly different route, or maybe they choose to stop over where on the way up they just continue to fly over that area. So I don't know exactly why it works that way. There's a few other birds it feels like that too where they're much more common in the fall than they are in the spring.
Yeah, interesting. I might be misspeaking. I think Hudsonian godwit and I think American golden plover in general. in the fall, they're going way out over the Atlantic. They're not really even coming through. And then we get them in the spring. So yeah, some of those birds do that big circular
Hmm.
migration that takes them off the possibility list in the fall. And then some of those birds too, I think once they start tracking them with better and better telemetry, we'll probably figure out they're doing some crazy stuff. We just have no idea what they're doing. We just don't really understand some of their ins and outs. Like the buff-breasted sandpiper, they might be doing some fun migration stuff we're just not aware of.
Yeah, it's possible. And I don't know if the winds are a little bit different or they blow in a slightly different direction, take them over a different part of the country. American golden plover for us is a fall bird more than a spring bird. So we'll get them at the sod farms and stuff with the buff-breasteds in the fall. So that's kind of interesting. Another fun fact about buff-breasted sandpipers that you probably know already, but I think it's interesting is that they lek, just like prairie chickens and stuff like that. So they'll be up in the Arctic tundra doing displays and lekking.
I did not know that. That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, it's super weird. And I think they're a bird too that not many people probably know about because I don't think many people are up there in the Arctic looking at all these different birds and the way that they pair up and the way that they raise chicks and everything. So I suspect that there's still a lot more information to learn about buff-breasted sandpipers.
Yeah. And I would love to see a pectoral sandpiper. I understand that they're, again, up there where I hope I get to see them someday, but doing that almost a hooting call, inflating their chest. The whole thing looks amazing on YouTube video, but I'd love to be up there and see it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That whole area in the Arctic must just be loaded with birds in the springtime, and it must be so unique to see them in that type of habitat because they're so vastly different in the habitat that they go to on the way up and the way down.
Yeah, and like again here, Smith's longspur, Harris's sparrow, some of those. I would love to see them breeding, doing their thing. We get them in basic plumage, just surviving winter. I would love to see both of those and all the others on their Arctic breeding grounds.
Sounds like a trip is in order to go in the
Yeah,
Arctic and just find as many as
it'd be,
possible.
it'd be, yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, maybe
Have-
sponsored. You should organize a trip and take us all.
That'd be awesome. Have you ever been to any of the places way up north like that, like Alaska or the Arctic Circle at all?
I have been to Alaska. I didn't go much further than not Fairbanks, Wasilla, which is a little north of Anchorage. And that was actually, I'm a little embarrassed. It was in midlife when I took kind of a big break from birding. I was obsessed with fishing. So I went up there with kind of an adopted dad that was a real mentor to me. I went there 3 or 4 times and we would spend a lot of time hiking around, fishing, but I didn't face birds at all, and I should have. I could have got some great ones. I did actually look back at a bunch of photos I took and got a few lifers because I took good photos of them, like the golden, yeah, Pacific golden
Oh,
plover
nice.
and some nets and stuff, but it was just because I took the pictures randomly and had to assess them later. So
You just found them years later and then looked back and said, "Oh, I can probably count this. I took a photo of it, stared at
I
it in the
absolutely,
field."
yeah, and that might be cheating. I don't know. In the moment, of course, I remember thinking, oh, it's a cool bird. Maybe I should get back into birding. I'll take a picture. But
I think that
yeah, I need
counts.
to, probably so.
Because I think if you notice it and you observe it and say, that's interesting and take a picture, I think that counts. What people sometimes do is they'll just scatter shot big flocks,
Yeah,
on a pelagic or something, or shorebirds, photo, 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 and then look back and identify all of them from the photo. I don't think that counts because I think you have to notice it in the field. You have to denote that one and say something about that one is different. I'm going to take a picture of that one.
yeah. And I knew enough up there to know I was looking at a murrelet versus obviously a gull or a golden plover. Just didn't know in the moment. Oh, what species is that? Maybe I'll look it up later. But yeah, it took literally years later, and I thought I should go look through all those pictures and see what I had. And I analyzed and had real fun looking at the pictures. Glaucous gull, glaucous wing gulls, a lot of neat birds I was that was there with, but didn't really pay much attention to in the moment.
Yeah, so you mentioned you were taking a break from birding at that point. So did you start birding at a young age and then just drop it for a while and then pick it back up at some point? Is that how it went, or were you always kind of lightly birding, or because now you
Um,
obviously are birding to the point where you have a podcast
yeah,
and all of that stuff. So you've gone really hard into it now.
yeah. As a kid, I felt a real innate love for birds on the farm. I fed the evening grosbeaks and mountain chickadees. They came down in the winter. We had great gray owls wintering on the farm all winter long, just great area there. So I loved birds then. In college, I got a biology degree with a lot of kind of or biology degree with a lot of ecology emphasis. So I got in with an ornithology professor and then really birded a lot, loved it. But then really it was just life. I got up into a professional career and kids and really just simply drifted away from it. And then my brother actually later in life got very into it and he kind of pulled me back and kept asking me questions and I realized, man, I forgot all my birding knowledge. And then I really got back into it maybe oh yeah, at least 2 decades later. And coinciding with that was my son turning like my youngest about 7 or 8, and he showed a real interest. And so then we got really hardcore back into it about 2013. And by that time we were here in Oklahoma. So we started the going to the Gulf Coast and birding up in the Midwest and going down to Arizona. So yeah, it's been about 8 years now I've been back into it hardcore.
Hmm, interesting. And then what led you to to decide you wanted to go even further and do a podcast out of it?
It's hard to put a finger on. I love this. I'm not a real, it's weird to say a big group people person. I like small group situations. I like to talk to people, get to know them in a more private setting. And I'm a question asker. I love to ask people questions. I like to get to know people, what makes them tick and all that. And we were actually asked to be on a podcast, Levi and I, because of the uniqueness of the father-son thing. So we were on Bird Banter podcast. And after that, my partner said, you would really be good at that. You need to do a podcast. You love that type of conversation.
She's
You
like, you
know a
love
little bit about
talking.
birds. Yeah, yeah. And as I host the podcast, I love just asking good open-ended questions and of course let other people talk. And so I just jumped in and learned how to do it. And it's been 2 years now.
Yeah, how do you feel like it's been going? Like, do you see a lot of growth in it? It feels like there weren't that many birding podcasts that were well known, and now it feels like everybody is starting one or trying to start one. How's it been going for you, and how do you feel like the landscape has changed there?
Yeah, I always had hope for it, but it's still been surprising how and interestingly, it took off about the first year slower, but then last year, about a year ago now, it really took off. You had just a lot more listeners. I think things like that gain momentum. It's just fun to get random emails from people and realize, all right, there's a random person in every state listening to the podcast. It was fun to get that 50th state wanting to check that box that every someone in every state had listened. But yeah, it's going well. I think it's not it's not like a million download a month podcast
It's a
monetized to
two
that
million a
extent.
month download podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it will always be for me. It's fun to get to the point, maybe make enough money at it to pay for costs and go on some birding excursions or whatever. But if I don't make any ever, like a $1 million download a month podcast, well, that's okay too. So yeah, it's just it's I love it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, when we started ours, I was surprised how many people would randomly say that they liked the podcast instead of saying they liked the videos. Because we obviously have a much bigger following on YouTube with the videos we put out than the podcast listeners do. But then time and time again, we would encounter someone and they would say, I love the podcast. And I was like, how are this many people wanting the podcast or listening to the podcast versus saying they like the videos, which was kind of funny.
Yeah. And you may have ran into this, an interesting quick story. Danny Bernard, who you had on recently,
Yeah,
and your brother called me out for loving Sasquatch. But
which is true. You do love Sasquatch.
I do love Sasquatch, if it exists.
That's,
I
yep.
was with Danny. I was with Danny here birding, and he showed me an email. He said, "Hey, I just got an email," and that email was from a person supporting him that said, "Hey, you're in Oklahoma. I know I've listened to a podcast, and the guy is out of Oklahoma. You should track him down and see if he could give you some support." And they were referring to me. And in that moment, I was already out there birding with Danny, so it was kind of fun to see him get this random email telling him to connect with me, and we were already connected out birding together. So just that wide connection in the birding community is really fun.
Yeah, Danny, what he's doing too probably deserves a little bit more focus from the bird world because what is it? Derek's talked to him and I've not actually met or talked to him. Is it 100 or 200 birds he's trying to see in each state?
Yeah, 100 birds per state, and then a real goal to, over the year, meet with and bird with certain number of other birders. And it's really a way, yeah, it's a great way to approach it. You know, people, places, birds is what he calls it. So he wants to see a lot of birds, but not obsessed with the list. Really wants to meet people, get to know the birding community, and he's just met all these wonderful people. And we spent he spent one night at the house here and parts of 2 days birding, and he's just such a great individual. Learned a lot from him and had a great time birding.
See, it feels like that should get more coverage in the bird world because it's
Yeah,
interesting. You know, it's
it
unique.
is. Yeah.
It mixes the culture, it mixes states, it mixes birds. And I don't think anybody's tried expressly to do it in a year, to my knowledge, unless it also didn't get publicized. And I kind of don't understand why it's not out there more, or more places haven't picked it up as a story.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I of course interviewed him after he came here. He was about halfway through the year. So once halfway was wrapped up, I interviewed him. And then I'm going to ask if he'll be on the podcast again at the end of the year and give him another shout out. But yeah, that'd be a fun human interest story on a national level, even that some news organization should pick up. Maybe Badgerland Birding, and I should reach out to some news networks and get him on that.
I think he's got to do some more promotion. He's got to find as many places as he can to appear on podcasts and things like that. Um, But yeah, it's very interesting. And what's kind of funny too is a lot of our guests, that we have on ours, you'll have on your podcast as well. And it's cool to give them double platform. So a
Yeah,
lot of these people in the bird world never are in front of an audience until they are on a podcast or something. So it's like cool to see them get double exposure like that.
yeah. And this is when I birded, of course, in my youth, I was just birding all by myself. And then even birding in the last 8 years, it's only been the last 2 or 3 years that I've started being part of this larger birding community. I didn't know birders in other states, never had birders stop by to bird, but I love that part of it now is getting to know so many people that are, I mean, it really does, it sounds trite, but it's a big family of individuals doing fun things and conserving birds. I love being part of the bigger birding community in the US.
I think the birding community is very strange because I would describe it as highly fractured. So it doesn't seem like there's any one governing body that's really the leader of it either. So you have the ABA, you have the ABC, you have Cornell Lab of Ornithology. There's all these entities out there that are vying to be important in the bird world, and I don't really know that the general birder knows any of them. So if you go to a
Yeah,
casual birder, somebody that's like, I picked this up last year, and you're like, hey, what do you think about the ABA? I think a lot of people will be like, I don't know what that is. So it's odd because the leadership seems fractured, and then everybody's out in their own little pockets. So when somebody says the birding community, I don't even know what the birding community necessarily
yeah.
is. There's a broad group of birders that are on the different Facebook groups like red polling and things like that, but I don't know exactly how to pin down the birding community.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I have moments where I let it go to a new state, and the focus is really just listing, just see as many species because I love to find them, and I'm more of a lister in that moment. But then I truly do just go and enjoy spending time with eastern screech owls we've seen 100 times, but relax, and I'm not worried about lifers, just in the moment. And that's how the birding community is separate as well. There's birders in all those little categories, how they bird. Um, I guess I tend to see the birding community as those that really have an interest in birds to the point where they want to act to try to conserve them, take an interest in them. And listers usually do. They have they're conservation minded. Certainly people that are just birding in their backyard or doing conservation things. So, but it's a very diverse, fractured group. It's a lot of different subcultures within the broader birding
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. And I think each state has I mean, our state has so many different ways to try to get information too. So we have a
Yeah,
Discord server. There's counties that still have a Telegram that's separate. There's people with their own little chat groups. There's Facebook notifications. There's eBird notifications. So the decentralization of the information and the availability of different tracks to get information is kind of astounding to me. And I
yeah,
do wonder if it sometimes leads to people in the birding community being more isolated than they need to be, if that makes sense.
yeah. And I guess the birds themselves dictate a lot of that. I mean, the way people bird and the emphasis on birds in southern Arizona is so incredibly different than Maine or
Hmm.
Puget Sound. So it's just it kind of it sets up a situation where it's just naturally there's going to be fractured parts of the birding community because the birds are fractured in their habitats and habits and how they do things. And yeah, and I like that part of it too is that all of this is determined by birds. They're doing the migrating and breeding and moving around and all this randomness that causes us to react and us it changes our behavior and how we have to interact with each other based on what the birds are doing. The birds' behavior is driving all this.
Yeah, the birds are the dictators of what happens in the community. I do wonder if there will ever be a more centralization of the community where, and probably not because people have so many different goals. You know, somebody who's a birder's goal might just be to see the general backyard birds that migrate through and keep track of those. But if there's ever going to be a time where it's something happens in the birding community and literally everybody associated with birding knows about it, or some person that becomes an actual birding celebrity that gets outside of birding and is known outside of that culture too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. And we're at that point now where I don't know that we can communicate any better than we can now. And instant communication was a person birding in Maine and sees a bird, someone in California can know about it in literally 5 seconds. So it'll be curious how it all evolves.
Yeah, and you do see that especially with rare stuff. So when that stone chat was found in Texas, all of a sudden everybody that was interested in ABA listing knew about the stone chat in Texas, just like that, or the Stellar
Yeah.
Sea Eagle. So there is a little core of people that all have the same goal to see as many rare birds in the country as possible that will have that information, I guess. Have you ever had Ezekiel on your podcast?
Yeah, I had him pretty shortly after he wrapped up his year. That was a lot of fun. Did he get 751? I think it was.
I think there was a question on whether something counted or not too, because I think the cattle tyrant was still listed as provisional, and then I think the ABA rejected the cattle tyrant, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know exactly what his final number was.
But and remind me, what was the record before that?
I don't remember, but I think he beat it by
Yeah.
a fairly significant amount.
Yeah. So he had a good enough margin there that either way he holds the record, I guess.
Yeah, it won't matter anyway. But it was interesting because I don't think many people had a story about him. You know, you would
Yeah.
think this lower 48 big year record would be something that news outlets would want to report. And there just wasn't much fanfare about it, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and I know Ezekiel was on your podcast. He was on mine. I don't know that I saw him on many others or different outlets or write-ups or anything.
Yeah, because it's like if doing a big year is the biggest thing you can do as a birder, and then it gets no outside publicity other than a handful of podcasts, you got to wonder, will anything get publicity?
Yeah. Yeah, but great story. He was fun to have on.
Yeah, he's a very, very nice guy. And who knows what he's going to do now with being so young and being so accomplished in birding already. So I don't know where there is to go from there for him, but I think he's still chasing stuff because I see his Instagram and he'll be in some other state checking something off.
Oh, interesting. And I thought he said he might end up down in the desert Southwest and do some guiding eventually.
I think that is what he's trying to do. Yeah. So that, at least for the time being, seems like it's a small thing. I think he should try to start his own guiding company. I'm very
Yeah,
pro everybody starting their own guiding company.
maybe I should start one here for buff-breasted sandpipers during 1 month in July.
I mean, you could. We were out in Colorado this summer with a guy who's starting his own tour guide company out there, focused on grouse mostly, but other stuff too. And he has all these properties now he can go to and check out Lex there. So it sounds like he's probably going to have a lot of people out to photograph the sage grouse and sharp-tailed grouse and dusky grouse out there. So that was cool to see him being like, yeah, I'm going to start my own guiding company.
Oh, that's cool. We have hosted a few people just because they're friends, and it's fun to do that. We had them spend the night and went out and, Smith's longspur, Harris's sparrows, just some of the fun local winter birds we have.
That stuff's pretty cool. I don't think you can
Yeah.
get especially Smith's longspur in that many places easily.
No. And the epicenter is right here. There's a well-known lake north of Stillwater, which is an hour from us. Of course, Tiffany Kirsten flew in stayed one night here and we drove her out. She got Smith's Longspur to tie the record and
Hmm.
then bailed down to get Bat Falcon for the record breaker. But
The
little things
Bat
like that are
Falcon.
just fun. Yeah.
What a crazy bird. Yeah, I mean,
And
if you were to start a guiding company, what do you think the birds or places people would want to see would be in Oklahoma?
man, I think it would have to be probably a winter one to tell people you can go get all four Longspurs. It's the only state really you could say definitely a few days, but maybe a good solid weekend, get from east to west and get the four Longspurs. And then there's some sneaky good places for wintering long-eared owls, short-eared owls, northern soft-whet owls. Um, and I just love the Harris sparrow. They're such a great bird. And that's really pretty range restricted in the winter here. So I think it would be that a midwinter come here and get the long spurs, a few of the other sparrows and owls, poke around Oklahoma, and maybe over a 3 or 4 day period.
We talked about this last time, but I was very pleasantly surprised with how fun Oklahoma was. Because you think
Yeah.
about it as just large and flat, but it has a lot of variety in terms of the habitat.
Oh, it does that. Again, I've repeated it a bunch of Black Mesa out there in the west, black-billed magpies, burrowing owls, western diamondback rattlesnakes, and then down in the southeast corner, Anhinga and American alligator. It's that
That's
diverse.
crazy.
And then again, where we are, we head east and get into the Ozarks, cerulean warbler, hooded warbler, prairie, blue-winged, golden-winged. Well, not golden-winged in the breeding, but blue-winged breeding, and yeah, very diverse state. And the nice thing is, a lot of people pass through here. A lot of people from the east heading to Arizona or Texas often pass through Oklahoma, so it absolutely should take a day if you're going through Oklahoma to bird.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you say Hidden Gem, Oklahoma?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Do you guys
But
have
again,
any? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, really, we don't get much that other people aren't getting, except for maybe Smith's Longspur, Harris's Sparrow, some of those. But even those are spread across several states. So not a place you'd come and spend 10 days like you would in Arizona or Texas, but it's worth the stop to, to get out and bird a little bit and to meet the Radfords in Tulsa if you need a place to shower and sleep. We'll feed people a good meal and show them birds one day and let them get on the road.
Nice, that's awesome. The hospitality in Oklahoma is off the charts, apparently. Do you have
Yeah, I
any
guess so.
specific food that Oklahoma is known for? Like, you have Philly cheesesteak and you have Chicago style pizza. Does Oklahoma have anything?
I honestly don't think they do. We're known here locally, I think, for pecans.
Oh,
Maybe, I don't
really?
know. Yeah, there are some great pecan groves. We've fallen in love with pecan trees for May warbler activity. Tons of warblers in those pecan catkins. But yeah, local pecans are pretty well known. I've only been here 10, 12 years now, so a local might correct me, but I don't think it's known for much as far as food, culinary stuff.
I think you need to make something up.
Probably should have sat. I do make something I call a Yeti spaghetti.
Oh, that could be it. Oklahoma
There you
Yeti
go.
spaghetti.
It's a good baked spaghetti. I just came up with the recipe for baked spaghetti, and then I called it Yeti spaghetti when I was up in the Pacific Northwest.
You put a bunch of Parmesan cheese on it so it looks kind of whitish like a Yeti.
A little bit of Parmesan, usually grated, not ground up, but yeah, grated Parmesan. Exactly. You got it.
Nice, that's awesome. I
And
feel like we would. Oh, go ahead.
you guys need to stop here if you're ever passing through and meet us.
I think that we do, especially because I have those birds on my list already, all the long spurs and the Harris sparrows, but I think long spurs are so cool. And we don't get to see Smith long spurs that often. They come through the state like one day a year in the spring, and that's about it. And they're a
Okay.
real pain to get because you have to search through hundreds, if not thousands, of Lapland long spurs usually.
Oh yeah.
But Harris's sparrows are one of my favorite sparrows because
Cool.
they're just so chunky and the color pattern on them I really like with the white underside with the black on the bib. I'm assuming they're not that bright always in winter there, but they're one of my favorite sparrows.
Yeah. And we do get fortunate. There's one week essentially in the spring where they change to that alternate plumage for about a week before they head north. So there's a week there where we get beautiful views of their beautiful breeding plumage, and then they bounce out. Where most people are focused on warblers by then and have long since quit looking at sparrows, but there's that one week we get that beautiful plumage. I try to pay attention to them.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. Um, oh, I was gonna mention too, black-cap vireo. in Oklahoma
Oh,
is probably
oh
one people
yeah,
would
a
want.
great one. Yeah.
I think in Oklahoma, other than Texas, is the only place in the country you can get black cat vireo.
Yeah, they get up into the Wichita Mountains there. In fact, I don't know that we've ever seen one in Texas. Maybe we have. We probably have, but yeah, we got our lifer ran down just 4 hours from us and got them in the Wichita Mountains, which I think you have you not you've been there, haven't you?
We
Wichita
did, yeah,
Mountains.
we got them there too, and it was really, really cool because you don't think of Oklahoma as a place that you can get a rare. Are they federally threatened too?
They may have. I think they were endangered originally. Maybe they're back
Okay.
to threatened, but they may be
They
fully
they might
endangered
still be
status.
endangered, but that's pretty
Yeah,
cool to be able to get a species like that. And if you look at the range too, isn't it kind of separate? It's like Texas and then space where there's no range, and then Oklahoma has a dot.
I believe it is. Yeah, they get up to that appropriate habitat that exists there in that pocket of the Wichita Mountains. Yeah,
Yeah,
great
that's so
bird.
strange. I was gonna say back to the food thing when we were in Colorado, there was a restaurant that served Colorado style pizza, and we were trying to figure out if it's actually now an accepted kind of pizza, but it seems like the guy that owned the restaurant just made it as almost like a gimmick. So he was just like, this is the only place you can get Colorado style pizza. And it had a thick crust that was almost like a full-on bread, and then they would give you honey to dip the crust in.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's the answer to come up with a Oklahoma style pizza, and you guys can come up with a Wisconsin style pizza.
There is one already in Wisconsin. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
super, super thin cracker crust pizza. And I
That's not my
think,
favorite.
no, it's not my favorite either. I like deep dish pizza,
Yeah, absolutely.
but I think you need an Oklahoma style one, or just get the Yeti spaghetti to be your dish of Oklahoma.
Yeah, if you end up passing through, staying a night, I'll feed you guys Yeti spaghetti.
That's perfect. That sounds like a promise, which I
In
feel like
fact, I
leads to us having to talk about Sasquatch.
absolutely.
So you said you're not sold.
No, it's such a weird. I'm completely perplexed by it. I mentioned this before. I know 10 or 12 people that I consider, close family, good friends, former coworkers that I trust innately, and that have told me stories about something they saw out there, something they saw. And they described what you would expect. They described something, some creature out there, but no photographic evidence or anything. I believe them, and I believe a lot of the stories. It's people have seen something.
Hmm.
And I grew up in Idaho, spent 10 years in the Pacific Northwest, so I bump into people that are out there hunting, fishing, living in the woods, and some of those are the people that have the stories. But then conversely, it seems incredibly unlikely to me that something like that could exist with no real evidence yet, besides footprints, which I guess seems like okay evidence, but no body. In biological science, kind of a body is required to get a type specimen of a genus species. So I'm perplexed by the whole phenomenon. I personally have never heard so much as a bump in the night at home or in the woods. I've never had any experience that was remotely paranormal or weird or anything. I guess I maybe I haven't conjured anything up, but and to the point where I have a niece that's in Arizona. As actually, I turned it into a podcast about her experience on the reservation. They're a Navajo Indian
Yeah.
out Skinwalker, and so I think there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I can't put a finger on it, but it's interesting how it's evolved now. Now it's became almost more of a punchline again, because so many Sasquatch researchers are just going around to conventions and selling T-shirts and
Hmm.
way past like a Dr. Jeff Meldrum that tries to do a serious scientific analysis of relict hominids and Gigantopithecus and mid-tarsal breaks in a footprint, more scientific stuff. So it's kind of evolved past a point where it can be taken very seriously, I think.
Yeah, Jeff Meldrum, it all, in my opinion, hinges on his work. And if he is accurate in what he's saying, then something out there is biologically leaving footprints. Because he seems like a very credible type of guy. And I've seen him when people bring him stuff be like, no, this is fake. Like Les Stroud. The Survivor Man did a whole series on Bigfoot, and he faked a footprint and brought it to Jeff Meldrum and was like, "Oh, I have this footprint. What do you think?" And he was like, "Something about it seems a little off," and it was fake. And then Jeff Meldrum was disappointed that it was fake too, but he wasn't just one of those guys that's like, "Yeah, this is dead on. You got evidence here," like so many other people. Um, and I remember the funniest thing, like if you've seen Finding Bigfoot, which I'm sure you have, they always interview
Yeah, I've
this.
watched probably 10 or 12 episodes.
Yeah, they always interview these people from Finding Bigfoot on other documentaries, and it's very they like believe anything is Bigfoot. I don't know if they actually
Yeah.
believe it or if they're just trying to sell, the show. But one of the guys goes, "Oh, the first night I was there, a Sasquatch walked out of the woods and stared at me, and I had my camera, but I chose not to take a picture because I figured if it's so easy to get looks at Sasquatch here, I'll get plenty later in the week." And I was like, "Are you
Uh,
kidding me right now? Like that's the
I
most
know.
bogus thing I've ever heard."
Yeah. Jeff Milder mentions that. He said for him, it's just sorting through so much gaff every day to get little kernels of truth that might mean something. He recognizes that most of it is just silliness, but he even describes, 1996, he discovered this trackway uh, that moment when he found and discovered through this Washington gentleman a trackway coming down
Was
through
that
the
the
mud and
Fremont
look.
footage guy?
It is, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess they showed up, him and his brother, there, and the guy said, "Well, there's some tracks I saw this morning. Do you want to go see them?" And they went and saw them, and he described all you know, the, I forget the technical term for fingerprints. The grooves, the
Dermal
ridges,
ridges.
dermal ridges, and the mid-tarsal break, and where the creature had slid. And I mean, I don't know. I believe that he saw those and that they weren't a hoax because he showed up unannounced. But again, at the same time, how is it possible that we don't have a body of a Sasquatch when a lot of people report seeing them on a road or
Yeah.
crossing a road, and at least once you'd expect a road collision and have a body. It's just, I mean, again, where are you at? Are you just kind of perplexed as well?
Yeah, I kind of have just thrown my hands up in the air and say I don't know. The same thing with most, I'll call it a conspiracy. So even like the moon landing, when people are like, "Do you think we landed on the moon or do you think it was a hoax?" I'm just like, I don't know. I wasn't there. Like
Yeah,
all I can go by is what other people say, and you have one expert being like, "This is entirely impossible," and then another expert's like, "No, it's entirely possible," and then it just comes down to which expert you believe. So
exactly.
that's how I feel with the Sasquatch. I'm so intrigued by it because it's fascinating. And I'm always unsatiated whenever I watch a documentary about it. So I'll get
Yeah,
interested in it, usually after we go out west or something, in the woods out there, you get that vibe, like anything could be hiding out there. You come back home, you go, yeah, I haven't watched Sasquatch stuff in a while, put an episode of something on. You're like, oh, this is so interesting. And then at the end, no evidence has been found. And you're just like,
yeah,
now what?
yeah. And that's it's kind of what drives us to be listeners, finding that next unknown thing we've never seen before or heard before. And I mean, just how amazing would it be if we discovered this thing did exist, or how amazing to actually be a witness and see something to go, okay, I've seen it. I know what I saw, but again, I just haven't ever. So, but I've talked to people that have that I believe, and but they always come to the conclusion. They go, I don't know what it was. I know what I saw. I can describe it physically. I know how I felt.
Yeah.
Never happened again. Didn't happen before. And those the people I don't believe are people that say they have repeated experiences or have everything is a symbol of a Sasquatch. My dog was playing with one, or that broken stick was a Sasquatch. Like
Yeah.
everything is symbolic of it. They're everywhere. I tend to believe the people that had kind of one-off experiences that they throw their hands up and go, I saw something, I felt something, it was there, it was real. What it was, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the most accurate conclusion to come to probably because if I had an experience like that, I wouldn't be like, no, it was definitely this. I'd just be like, I saw this and I don't know what to think. So there you have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
And
crazy. It's fun.
yeah, I feel like it always goes to the ivory-billed woodpecker discussion too when you talk Sasquatch with bird people because it feels so similar. It's like
Yeah,
some of these sightings are, oh, it came back to the same tree day after day after day. And then, well, did you get a picture of it? Oh no, I put a long distance camera on this tree and you can see these blobs coming. And then you're just like, well, if it's that easy to find it, then why did you not find it?
Yeah.
So,
And that's an interesting parallel because we do know that a 8 or 9 foot ape did exist. It's
yep,
Gigantopithecus.
yep.
So on the other side of the world, there was, and maybe through land bridges or whatever, it came here, but we know it existed. Like we know the ivory bill existed. So the question is, does a relict hominid or hominoid, whatever the correct term is, still exist? We know they did at one point through fossil, through dentition evidence.
I think at this point, it's either it doesn't exist and it's a hoax, or it's way weirder than any of us could have expected. I don't think that it'll
Yeah,
ever be, yeah, there's just this population of hominids that are out there. I think it's either something way beyond what we comprehend or it's a hoax. So I don't think it's
yeah.
just an animal out there anymore. I think that we would have a body or something by now.
I, I think so. And I hope I'm still around when there's substantially more evidence. The Patterson-Gimlin evidence that came out, I think that was late 60s. That's really been nothing since then
Mhm.
has come out that even approaches that in terms of whether it was a man in a monkey suit or the real deal. At least it's there to analyze and look at, and nothing even remotely similar has come out since.
Yeah, I do have to say that if I was out in the woods and I saw something like that, I don't think my instinct would be to start recording. I think I would get out of there. I would not want to put my camera up. I don't know if I could because I've experienced with even birds that you want to see, you get so excited and the nerves are pumping that it's hard to even hold it steady when you're looking at a bird, something that you know
Yeah,
exists in real life. So I don't know what would happen if I saw one of those and tried to film it. I don't think I could really do it very effectively. And then people would be like, "Oh, you had your camera right there. How could you not do it?"
yeah. And I believe Gimlin. I've listened to 20 different interviews of Bob Gimlin, and he's still alive, and he was there in the moment, and he describes it, and I don't think he's lying, unless he was duped and it was all set up to dupe him in the moment.
Hmm.
But I believe that in the moment, what he said happened, and unless Patterson was trying to dupe him and con him, I think he believes everything he says. So
Yeah, it sure sounded like that.
yeah,
Well,
interesting. Well, maybe we find one eventually.
maybe when we go out in Oklahoma looking for Harris's sparrows, we'll stumble across something, I guess. I do want to make one radical turn back to birds, because this is a question that I think is worth asking to everybody who's a birder. You mentioned that you do like the listing component a lot. What is
Yeah.
the reason that you go birding? What is it about it? What is the thing that you relish the most when you're out looking at birds or finding a new one or something?
I think it's probably two things, and it relates to listing. It's that because I like to list, but I think I love listing because that represents those moments where I've seen something I've never seen before. I love that. Like a bird I've seen in a book, I've listened to audio, never seen it in person. I love that moment. It's such a high when I see a bird I've never seen before. So not that I'm particularly the list or the numbers not that important to me, but I just want 700 of those moments in the US where I've seen a bird I've never seen before. It's kind of that moment I really love. And then more lately, I just love the connection between birds and habitat. I love
Mhm.
because I think we have to conserve habitat. We need large scale tracts of native habitat to save these birds. So I love figuring out how to have those moments by figuring out habitat. So where should this bird be? Let's figure out habitat. Oh, they should be in this open cedars hillside versus a river bottom. Let's go to appropriate habitat, figure it out, and the bird should be there. And sure enough, the bird's there. So I love that part of birding. Birding is understanding habitat and figuring out what birds should be in appropriate habitat and finding them. It's work sometimes, but it's very rewarding. And again, rewarding for me more lately too is stepping back and trying to conserve these birds and putting a lot more time into habitat, conservation, restoration, and doing what we can to save these birds. Because a lot of them, whether it's I mean, really Smith's longspur, Baird sparrow, saltmarsh sparrow, I mean, so many Hawaiian birds. Those birds that if my son doesn't get them now, they may not be around in 50
Mhm.
years. What a sad deal. So I think we really need to start putting more into conservation of these birds.
Yeah, do you have a place where you can give money to conservation efforts that you trust? Is there something you'd recommend, or is it more you're finding it at the state, local, even county level?
Um, I honestly haven't done a lot for two reasons. One, I've put money into property I was blessed to have in Idaho. So I was able to keep a little over 10 acres of the family farm, which was an old riparian corridor. So I've just converted that to habitat. So I've spent money and resources there on fencing to keep out neighbors' cows, planting, the habitat stuff, and then a lot of money turning grass into native habitat in the backyard.
That's
So
cool.
I've just kind of personally put money into, in one case, restoring habitat in the backyard, and in another case, protecting habitat in on the Idaho farm there. So, but locally, I am a big fan of those organizations that can do large scale purchasing of native habitat, and that's mostly the Nature Conservancy. So I think money should be put into Nature Conservancy because they're doing, in my opinion, what we need to do the most is large chunks of habitat, protect it, get overgrazing off of it, what it might be, and just leave it for the birds. And they do that really well in a lot of areas.
Yeah, that's a good point that you raise. It really is mostly about the habitat. I think something that I really appreciate about birds and birding is that oftentimes you find stuff in weird places that are technically, if you think about it, appropriate habitat. But you'll
Yeah,
be in Milwaukee and we'll see a redneck phalarope with the skyline in the background. And it's just on the edge of a break wall. You think that that's not a place it would ever necessarily be in as a city, yet it finds suitable habitat there. So I think the
yeah,
uniqueness of what you have to do to find some of the birds, and I think the memory surrounding that is what drives me to continue to do it. And it has this weird thing where it kind of puts you into the same place in your life where you're like, oh yeah, this is when the shorebirds come through. So I'm going to go to Milwaukee and find the shorebirds the same way that I do every year. So something about the perpetual search and the perpetual finding and the perpetual new memories baked in with the old memories is what gets me the most about birding.
I love it. Yeah. And those, yeah, little bits of appropriate habitat, if it's either conserved or restored, they find it and make use of it.
It's crazy how small that habitat can be sometimes that they'll find.
Yeah. Like again, in Tulsa County, we have a lot of remnants of cross timbers habitat, and some of it's not very big, but those cross timber post oak woods, it will have the appropriate birds in it, breeding black and white warblers and yellow-throated vireos, chuck-will's widows. They find those bits of remnant habitat and use it.
Yeah.
Well, and I say they find it. The truth is they've been here, but they still use it, although it's shrinking. But the migrants will find it too as they pass through.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Matthew, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me. Where can listeners find you if they want to hear more from you on your podcast?
They can go and find it at Bird's Eye View. So the podcast is Bird's Eye View podcast. It's got a throwback 70s Bird's Eye View logo, so it's on Spotify, all the typical places. And then Matthew with one T, Matthew G. Radford on Facebook. You can find me and reach out and see the appropriate links. But yeah, if you just go search for Bird's Eye View podcast with the 70s logo on your favorite podcast platform.
The 70s logo specifically. Love it.
I
Well,
love it. Yeah, I'm a 70s kid, so it's a homage to the 70s.
that's why I like the Buccaneers logo.
Exactly.
Well, thanks again, Matthew, and thank you everybody else for listening to and watching this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.